16. Drago Savulescu. Romanian businessman Drago Savulescu has a criminal history dating back to the early 2000s. But his lifestyle didn't catch up with him until 2019, when he was convicted in a land fraud case and sentenced to 5.5 years in prison. Savulescu and his associates conspired to obtain land belonging to elderly heiress Ivon Alin Buzescu Movila, despite not being related to her. After being sentenced, Savulescu ran off to Italy to avoid serving his time. He surrendered to law enforcement in Naples in 2020, but the Italian government refused to extradite him. In the meantime, he remained free and went on the run again. At the same time, Savulescu was married to Albanian model Angela Martini, who he exchanged vows with in Las Vegas in 2017. Through Martini's social media posts, authorities discovered that the couple were vacationing on the Greek island of Mykonos. The posts included photos of the pair at a luxury hotel and dining out with friends. Savulescu was also seen in his friend's social media posts, solidifying law enforcement's suspicion that he was on the island. An officer was sent to scope out the scene and was able to visually confirm Savulescu's identity. Police swiftly descended on the scene and took him into custody in front of his entourage, but once again, the authorities refused to extradite him to Romania. As of 2022, Savulescu was still a free man and was living with Martini at their home in Milan. 15. Brazen Burglars caught boasting. A crew of 6 thieves from the Bronx wreaked havoc throughout downstate New York in recent years, where they committed at least 200 robberies at car dealerships and other businesses. Willie Baines, Joseph Dck Jr., Brandon Colanzo Rivera, Justin Herrera, Douglas Noble, and Alexander Santiago allegedly stole more than $3 million worth of cell phones, cash, merchandise, and other items, including 54 cars. The brazen criminals left a trail of destruction in their wake, including smashed glass and other damage. And they led police on dangerous high-speed chases. They often burglarized multiple businesses in one night, targeting neighborhoods that had several car dealerships and cell phone stores. The suspects were linked to the crimes over the course of a 13-month investigation that was led by state authorities and the NYPD. Dozens of county and local enforcement agencies also participated in the investigation, dubbed Operation Redline. Authorities identified the thieves using cell phone data, surveillance footage, license plate reader data, and other evidence. But the suspects didn't exactly make themselves impossible to find. They posted photos of themselves on social media, showing off wads of cash and some of the stolen cars, which only served to strengthen the already solid case that was being built against them. The posts often appeared just minutes after the crimes, which made it even easier for investigators to connect the suspects to specific burglaries. A raid of 2 of the suspects' homes turned up even more evidence linking them to the thefts. In 2023, 4 of the men pleaded guilty to second-degree grand larceny. Another suspect pleaded guilty to burglary, and the 6th defendant pleaded guilty to attempted burglary. All 6 of the defendants received undisclosed prison sentences and are currently serving their time. 14. Mario Cordo Jr. Late one night in January 2024, police were called to the scene of a deadly shooting in Edinburgh, Texas. Hidalgo County Sheriff's deputies arrived to find 23-year-old Michael Aravelo dead from multiple gunshot wounds. A neighbor told law enforcement that men in dark hoodies approached Aravelo's house and opened fire on him while he was sitting outside. Further investigation revealed that the victim had been arguing with someone named Abel A.J. Sanchez Jr. on social media before the shooting. But Sanchez was in custody for an unrelated case at the time, so he couldn't have killed Aravelo. Witnesses revealed that 22-year-old Mario Cordo Jr. had been using Sanchez's social media account to communicate with the victim. He also bragged about committing the murder in a group chat. Authorities raided Cordo's home and found evidence to corroborate the witnesses' accounts. They also interviewed Sanchez, who confirmed that he'd given his Facebook password to Cordo so that he could communicate on Sanchez's behalf during his time in jail. Phone records further link Cordo to the murder by placing him in the area at the time of Aravelo's death. Cordo was arrested for murder and is awaiting trial at the Hidalgo County Jail with bond set at $2 million. He has an extensive arrest record dating back to his teenage years, which includes prior convictions for aggravated robbery, burglary, weapon-related charges, and drug possession. The young offender has also been arrested for theft and evading arrest. 13. Robert McKenna III. In 2023, Dr. Essam Qureshi was sued for malpractice in Orange County, California, following the death of a patient. The lawsuit stemmed from an incident 5 years earlier, which began when 49-year-old Enrique Garcia Sanchez was admitted to a medical center in Santa Ana for a painful case of alcohol-related pancreatitis. According to the man's surviving loved ones, Dr. Qureshi accidentally pierced Sanchez's colon with a feeding tube, leading to a fatal infection. The family hoped to win a $10 million settlement in the lawsuit. Qureshi's lawyer, Robert McKenna III, argued that Sanchez died from other causes and blamed other hospital staff members for the errors that led to his death. He also encouraged jurors to disregard the information on Sanchez's death certificate and accused the plaintiffs of extortion. The jury acquitted Qureshi after deliberating for less than a half hour, and he was off the hook for the allegations that had been brought against him. Following the court victory, McKenna gathered with colleagues at his office to celebrate and bragged in an online video. In the footage, he could be heard saying, "A guy that was probably negligently killed, but we kind of made it look like other people did it." McKenna posted the clip to his firm's social media page, but received heavy backlash on legal forums and removed it shortly thereafter. In response to the criticism, the attorney claimed that he didn't realize his comments would be broadcasted online, and that he made the imprecise remarks during an internal briefing to his staff. He apologized, but the damage was done. The judge who oversaw the medical malpractice case threw out the verdict and ordered a new trial. At a hearing announcing his decision, Orange County Superior Court Judge James Crandall said that McKenna's words seemed like an admission of negligence and an admission that the plaintiff should have won the case. The Sanchez family's attorney, Jorge Ledesma, said that McKenna had pointed the finger at other staff members in court despite agreeing ahead of time not to do so. Ledesma also pointed out how McKenna had bragged on video. The judge replied that it's not unusual for a lawyer to brag, but that it was problematic that he appeared to be bragging about a lack of justice being done. Judge Crandall acknowledged that McKenna is a good lawyer, but that good men make mistakes and even the Pope goes to confession. He pointed towards additional concerns regarding the lawyer's conduct throughout the case, including McKenna's use of the phrase "Welcome to America" in his closing argument, which the judge perceived as a possible emotional plea to arouse anti-Hispanic sentiment. Crandall also put some of the blame on the jury, who were hasty in their decision to acquit and seemed to come to a consensus based on emotion rather than the evidence. Qureshi's new attorney said that the doctor planned to challenge the judge's ruling for a new trial, leaving the current status of the case unclear. 12. Brian Xavier Salazar. In July of 2022, sheriff's deputies in Bexar County, Texas, received information about a San Antonio man who was allegedly in possession of a Hyundai Sonata that had been reported missing weeks earlier. Police located the vehicle and found a receipt inside from a local taco restaurant, which enabled them to obtain footage of Salazar driving the car. An arrest warrant was issued, and Salazar was captured following a brief foot chase. In a Facebook post announcing the arrest, the Bexar County Sheriff's Department shared photos of the teen posing with guns that they presumably found on social media. The caption appropriately stated, "Went from flexing to this." Salazar was charged with unauthorized use of a motor vehicle and evading arrest. 11. Dck Medina. In a disturbing case that made news headlines worldwide, a 31-year-old Florida man named Dck Medina murdered his wife, Jennifer Alonso, and posted a photo of her slain body on Facebook in 2013. The gruesome image, which showed Alonso lying on her back and covered in blood, was accompanied by a statement admitting that Medina had killed the victim at their South Miami townhouse. In the post, the former boxer claimed that he was forced to take drastic action after enduring years of physical abuse. Medina also wrote "R.I.P. Jennifer Alonso" and mentioned that he was going to prison for the rest of his life. He then went to a nearby police station and confessed to the crime. Officers responded to the scene and found Jennifer dead in the kitchen, just as she had appeared in the Facebook photo. Medina had shot her 8 times at point-blank range and was arrested for her murder. The couple had only been married since the previous year when their relationship took a deadly turn. Less than 24 hours before the murder, Medina and Alfonso had both uploaded photos of themselves eating dinner together at a local restaurant. Just hours before her death, Alonso had changed her profile picture to a photo of her and Medina kissing. During his trial, Medina claimed that he'd shot Alfonso in self-defense after she charged him with a knife during an argument. Prosecutors told a much different story, claiming that Medina had threatened to kill Alfonso if she left him, something she reportedly told friends she was planning to do in the time leading up to the murder. According to Assistant State Attorney Scott Dunn, the evidence showed that Jennifer tried fighting for her life, but that Medina cornered her like an animal, essentially denying her any opportunity to escape alive. In addition to the brutal nature of the murder, Dunn pointed out the callousness of Medina's decision to post the photo of his dead wife, stating it wasn't enough that he had to take an innocent person's life, he had to make a spectacle out of it. Medina insisted that he posted the image to inform Alfonso's relatives of her death. He also complained that he didn't get a fair trial, but failed to garner any sympathy from the jury or the court. He was found guilty of second-degree murder and is currently serving life without parole. During his sentencing hearing, Medina went on a bizarre rant and threatened to sue the entire world. But not much has changed in his life since then. He's still in prison, and that's where he'll stay until his dying day. 10. Rosemary Frett. 64-year-old Donald Gavagni was found dead in a bathtub at his Sunrise, Florida home in July of 2014. He was found by a concerned friend who went to check on him after not hearing from him for several days. Responding officers found blood throughout the home and bloody washcloths in the kitchen sink, and the victim had a bruise on his forehead and a scalp laceration. A medical examiner ruled that Gavagni had most likely died from cardiac arrest brought on by substantial blood loss. Police also found a purse and medication belonging to the man's roommate, 40-year-old Rosemary Frett, who claimed that she'd shoved Gavagni during an argument over a dog. She said that the victim had fallen and hit his head as a result of being pushed. In a recent Facebook video that was filmed outside the home, Frett had admitted to having thoughts about harming Gavagni. She said that she'd become delirious from fighting with Donnie, and that it caused her to fantasize about stabbing him in the neck with a sharp knife. Frett went on to explain that she was mentally disabled and that she knew she had the capacity to become pretty violent. Toward the end of the 4-minute clip, she admitted to bashing Gavagni's head against the floor several times, then stealing his phone and money. Frett also posted Facebook status updates detailing her fantasies about taking revenge on Gavagni. In one post, she called the victim a loser and wrote that she was in a violent mood and that Donnie had one coming from her big time. She would later claim that she attacked Gavagni because he'd killed his dog, but it's unclear whether this is true. During police questioning, Frett told investigators about the Facebook video and even invited them to watch it, almost as if she felt proud of the footage. Records show that she was convicted of second-degree murder and is currently serving an 18-year probation sentence. 9. Daniel Jalil Thomas. When he wasn't posting music videos on YouTube, aspiring rapper Daniel Jalil Dandu Thomas was advertising marijuana and oxycodone for sale on social media and posting photos of himself with fully automatic machine guns. In February 2022, law enforcement discovered a post advertising marijuana for sale at an apartment complex in Washington, D.C. that had been court-ordered to stay away from due to a prior gun charge. Officers paid a visit to the property and found him standing outside. Thomas jumped into the backseat of a parked vehicle as soon as he saw the cops. He refused to cooperate with their orders to exit the car and continued to resist when they forcibly removed him. During the struggle, the cops found a loaded Glock handgun in his waistband, which was modified to work as a fully automatic weapon. Inside Thomas's car, the police found 4 pounds of marijuana and 81 30-milligram oxycodone pills. At the time, the 22-year-old was already under scrutiny by the FBI for suspected narcotic and gun trafficking activities. He was held without bond as the investigation continued. During a search of Thomas's phone, detectives found text messages from 5 days before his arrest discussing a planned drive-by revenge shooting, which thankfully never happened. Thomas and two co-conspirators were eventually indicted on multiple federal charges relating to their crimes. Thomas was convicted of drug distribution and weapon-related charges in early 2024, including conspiracy to distribute 100 kilograms or more of marijuana, unlawful possession of a machine gun, and using, carrying, and possessing a firearm during, in relation to, and in furtherance of drug trafficking. He was sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, followed by 4 years of supervised release. 8. Javier Campos III. Around 20 people were gathered on a street corner in San Francisco's Mission District for a late-night party in June of 2023, when someone opened fire on the crowd. 9 people were wounded in the drive-by shooting, with injuries ranging from minor to life-threatening. The next day, a police spokesperson announced that the crime may have been connected to a fight that had occurred on the same block days earlier. On the night of the shooting, the partygoers had gathered to celebrate the 6th anniversary of the Dying Breed clothing store. Shortly after the senseless act of violence, reporters from Mission Local discovered incriminating posts on a social media account belonging to 22-year-old Javier Campos III. One Instagram post from a few days before the shooting stated that he was going to make sure people never post up on that block again, and was set to a song called Murder Alley. Comments on the aspiring rapper's YouTube videos also seem to reference the crime, with at least one person mentioning the fight that had happened several days earlier. Campos also posted photos alluding to a possible criminal lifestyle, including pictures of himself showing off with guns, cash, and what a reporter described as medicine-like bottles. He faces 12 charges, including 8 counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm and causing great bodily injury, 3 counts of unlawful firearm possession, and 1 count of assault and discharging a firearm from a motor vehicle causing a great bodily injury. The accused shooter pleaded not guilty and has denied the prosecution's allegations that he's connected with local gangs. An officer with the San Francisco Police Department's Community Violence Reduction Team testified in a preliminary hearing that he believes Campos and his associates are affiliated with the Sereno Street Gang, even though the shooting happened in territory claimed by the Norteño Gang. The judge ruled that there's sufficient evidence to believe that Campos has gang connections and has ordered the case to go to trial. His defender, Seth Meisels, told Mission Local that his client is the victim in a case of guilt by association and maintained that Campos did not commit the shooting. The outcome of the case remains to be seen. 7. Wesley Sano Santarém. At just 19 years old, Brazilian cryptocurrency trader Wesley Sano Santarém had more money than many people ever see in their lifetime. He showed off his luxurious lifestyle on Instagram, where he amassed a following of more than 134,000, and posted videos on YouTube offering financial advice to novice investors. By all appearances, Santarém's future looked promising. But it was ripped away from him in 2021 when he was mercilessly gunned down in his red Porsche Boxster in broad daylight in the city of São Pedro da Aldeia. Santarém was on his way to get a haircut when a group of killers opened fire on him from a silver Volkswagen. His last Instagram post was a photo of the young man leaning against the Porsche with a wad of cash in his hands. Santarém was shot at least 4 times, with at least one of the bullets striking him in the head. His death came amid a string of other disturbing acts of violence against crypto investors throughout the world, raising increasing concerns about the dangers that come with being successful in the trade. The tendency for wealthy young traders to show off their upscale lifestyle on social media has caused many to wonder if this makes them an even bigger target than they would otherwise be. Several months after Santarém's murder, police arrested Luis Felipe Vieira Cherfan Tavares in connection with the crime. Better known by his nicknames Branquinho or Playboy, Tavares was allegedly paid 50,000 reais, $10,016 to kill Santarém. At the time of his arrest, investigators were still working to identify who ordered the hit. According to the most recent update available on the case, at least 8 people have been arrested for their alleged roles in the murder. 6. Stephen Dck Jr. In July 2014, firefighters were called to a Manchester, Connecticut apartment building that was on fire. Inside one of the apartments, they found the body of 56-year-old mother of 4 Sarah Kellaway, who had been wrapped in a blanket and set ablaze. Police didn't have to look hard to find the killer. Kellaway's neighbor, 21-year-old Stephen Dck Jr. was linked to the crime scene through DNA left behind on a doorknob. He'd also posted photos of the slain woman's body on social media and bragged about killing her. Dck was quick to remove the posts after being interviewed by the police, but the content had already been seen by plenty of people and the damage was done. According to court documents, Dck had climbed onto Kellaway's roof, waited for her son to leave, then snuck into her third-floor apartment through an unlocked window. He proceeded to assault the victim, who was beaten with an ashtray and died from blunt force trauma to the head. Kellaway had fought for her life, but was ultimately overpowered by her attacker. Burn marks to certain parts of the woman's body indicated that her killer had tried to destroy evidence of the assault. Dck's friends were shocked to learn of his arrest and the disturbing Facebook post he'd made about the crime. After the accused killer's first court appearance, two of his pals told local station WREG that Dck was a good friend who looked out for others. But Dck's involvement in the crime wasn't exactly surprising. He already had a lengthy criminal history despite his young age, and he denied any involvement in Kellaway's death, but the evidence against him was strong. He was ultimately convicted of 7 charges, including murder, burglary, arson, tampering with evidence, and assault, and received consecutive prison sentences totaling 115 years. 5. The Heath Street Gang. The Boston-based Heath Street Gang was formed in the 1980s and grew to consist of an estimated 150 members who dipped its hands in all sorts of crime, including racketeering, large-scale financial fraud, drug and gun trafficking, organized retail theft, and murder. Headquartered in the city's Jamaica Plain neighborhood, the gang operated primarily out of the Mildred C. Haley Apartments, one of the city's largest public housing developments. According to federal authorities, leaders recruited young people who lived in the apartments, drawing many new members into a life of crime before they even reached adulthood. The Heath Street Gang controlled far-reaching drug distribution networks throughout the state and in Maine and California. Its members also committed large-scale unemployment fraud and smash-and-grab robberies, making off with thousands of dollars worth of stolen merchandise from each store that was hit. To maintain power, the gang frequently engaged in shootings and other violent crimes. These activities eventually caught the attention of local and federal law enforcement, prompting a multi-agency investigation into the illicit organization's crimes. Authorities seized over 60 guns that were used in shootings, which included crimes resulting in harm to innocent civilians. Members of the Heath Street Gang were traced to at least 3 homicides, which they allegedly bragged about in YouTube videos. They boasted about their violent crimes on other social media platforms, where they posted photos of themselves carrying high-powered guns, throwing gang signs, and mocking rivals from other gangs. The gang also used social media to facilitate their drug distribution and sales. In one rap video posted on YouTube, Heath Street members allegedly talked about the victims of their violent crimes. One of these songs' lyrics states, "I can say their names, but I might make the feds come for us." And that's exactly what happened. In February 2024, federal authorities charged 40 defendants with racketeering, drug trafficking, wire fraud, financial fraud, and gun-related crimes. At least 24 of the accused are members of the gang, while the rest are believed to be associates. During a news conference following the arrests, U.S. Attorney Joshua S. Levy said that the things discussed in the gang's music videos corroborate with some of the crimes that they're accused of, and that the online material will certainly be used against the defendants in court. Levy further stated that law enforcement acted with the goal of bringing peace to the Mildred C. Haley Apartments, where law-abiding citizens should be able to go about their daily lives without having to fear for their safety or that their children might be recruited into a gang. 4. Danny Simpson. Danny Simpson was well known to law enforcement in and around the English town of Gravesend. Since 2006, he'd been almost entirely banned from driving due to repeated traffic crimes, but he hasn't let it stop him from getting behind the wheel. Between then and 2020, he was convicted of driving while disqualified at least 12 times. Despite his repeated arrests, Simpson was known for bragging on social media with claims of outrunning the police. He showed a blatant disregard for the law and a pattern of escalating behavior that caused authorities to become increasingly concerned about his future actions. In late 2020, police noticed the repeat offender's Range Rover parked outside a restaurant. Officers were working to confirm the identity of the vehicle's owner. That's when Simpson exited the restaurant and mocked the police, claiming that they couldn't arrest him because they couldn't prove he'd been driving the SUV. He would soon learn that he was wrong. Fed up with Simpson's behavior, investigators worked to uncover evidence to prove that he had, in fact, been driving the Range Rover that evening. Thanks to CCTV footage, eyewitness statements, and social media photos of Simpson driving to the restaurant, the findings were sufficient to arrest him for driving while disqualified again and driving without insurance. Simpson initially pleaded not guilty to the charges, but he had an apparent change of heart just days before he was scheduled to go to trial. He changed his plea to guilty and was sentenced to 12 weeks in jail. The judge also banned Simpson from driving for another 21 months, although based on his history, he probably didn't see this as a reason to stay off the road. 3. Gakira Barnes. Known in Chicago's South Side as K.I., Gakira Barnes touted herself on social media as a gang assassin. The teenager claimed to have killed as many as 17 people starting at the age of 14 when she committed her first murder. She also posted photos of herself brandishing various guns, making it clear that she wasn't afraid to use them, and appeared in local rap music videos with guns and large wads of cash. At one point, during her adolescence, Barnes wanted to become a social worker, but her vision for the future changed, and she went from being a charter school graduate to a member of the city's notorious Flyboy gang. She was reportedly sucked into the gang lifestyle after the murder of a close friend in 2011 incited a desire for retribution. 8 months later, someone fatally shot Odie Perry, the rival gangster who was suspected of killing Gakira's friend. Many people suspected the young woman of assassinating Perry, and it's easy to understand why. It was no secret that Barnes was hell-bent on revenge, and she certainly talked herself up. She was never officially named as a suspect in any shootings, and most of her arrests were for relatively minor crimes, but her fearsome reputation told a much different story on the streets. Perry's murder was still unsolved 3 years later, when a hooded man approached Barnes on the street and shot her 9 times, executing her in cold blood. Gakira's murder went unsolved for years, but was not forgotten. For many, the tragedy raised concerns about how the use of social media seems to have a worsening effect on gang violence in Chicago, and what can be done to curb its effects. In 2021, newly unsealed police records revealed that several witnesses had named an infamous drill rapper, King Von, as Gakira's killer. He wasn't charged with the crime due to a lack of evidence, and by the time the information became public, he had been fatally gunned down by a rival gang member. According to the documents, a man named Davon Bennett was also named as the possible killer. To this day, Gakira's life and death remain shrouded in mystery. The identity of her killer remains unclear, and it's unknown whether she actually committed the murder she took credit for. But she undoubtedly had no shortage of enemies, and it's certainly fair to wonder if the reputation she garnered with the help of social media made her a target. 2. Enroy Ruck. 21-year-old Emmanuel Manny Lukenga was a young father with a second child on the way when he was targeted by members of a rival gang in the English city of Coventry. In June of 2019, he was found dead from a single stab wound in someone's yard, where he'd tried seeking refuge from his attackers. Less than an hour after Lukenga's murder, 19-year-old rival gang member Enroy Ruck bragged about the crime on Snapchat. According to police, Lukenga's gang was entangled in a long-standing dispute with rival gangs over territorial claims. Shortly before his death, Manny and his friends were seen in an enemy gang's estate, prompting Ruck and 3 other rival members to seek revenge. Riding on a stolen motorcycle, Ruck and Kyle Kinchin drove around with a gas can until they found Manny's car. They set it on fire, then continued their search for Manny and his friends. Joined by Matthew Brankin and Bradley Richardson, Ruck and Kinchin spotted some of Manny's friends inside a convenience store. They approached with an axe, but decided not to wage an attack inside the shop and started driving again in search of Manny. The pursuing gangsters once again caught up with Manny and his friends, who tried to escape on foot down an alleyway and ran off in separate directions as they sought safety in strangers' yards. Ruddock and Richardson chased after Manny, taking their axe to someone's gate along the way, and Ruddock inflicted the fatal stab wound as Manny attempted to climb a fence. The blade severed an artery, causing the victim to bleed to death despite emergency responders' best efforts to save him. Investigators identified the suspects through CCTV footage, and Ruddock's Snapchat further helped prove his guilt. Enroy Ruck, Matthew Brankin, and Bradley Richardson were all found guilty of murder and sentenced to life with minimum terms ranging between 19 and 23 years. Kyle Kinchen was acquitted of murder but pleaded guilty to arson and was sentenced to 27 months behind bars. And now for number 1. But if you want to hear more bizarre and crazy stories, stay tuned after the video for some more content. 1. Spencer Gilbert. Around 50 people were in attendance at a post-prom party in Godley, Texas in April 2023 when a fight broke out into the backyard around midnight. 20-year-old Jardan Moblin was shot multiple times and died from his injuries. By the time emergency responders arrived, the suspected gunman, Spencer Orlando Gilbert II, had fled the scene. Cell phone videos of the fight that were captured in the moments leading up to the shooting helped police identify Gilbert as the suspected shooter. Gilbert also allegedly bragged about the crime in an Instagram video while showing off the murder weapon. He was apprehended outside Houston several hours after the shooting after crashing a car into a pole during a high-speed chase. Police found multiple firearms in the car, including the gun that was used to kill Moblin. According to the Texas Rangers, Gilbert admitted to bragging about the shooting online. At the time of the murder, he was serving a 10-year community supervision sentence for a prior felony conviction for causing injury to a child/elderly person/person with a disability. Gilbert was ordered to attend anger management, but it clearly didn't do him much good, since he lacked enough self-control to avoid shooting someone in the head during a disagreement. Even after being arrested, he didn't seem to understand the seriousness of the situation he was in. He smiled for his mugshot, but he was no longer grinning when he realized that he was facing a potential lifetime behind bars. Gilbert pleaded guilty to murder, assault, and being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after serving half his sentence, which means he could see freedom again in 27.5 years. Even the minimum number of years Gilbert's required to serve will keep him behind bars for an extremely long time, which is perhaps why he didn't smile in any more of his recent mugshots that were taken around the time his sentence was handed down. 9. An international lawsuit. Russia's investigative committee is taking action against Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, for allegedly illegally encouraging violence against the country's citizens. They recently filed a criminal lawsuit against the platform based on a temporary policy change that allows users to express angry and violent rhetoric regarding the Russian military's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. The legal action, which was started in March, accuses Meta of making public calls for extremist activities and assisting terrorist activities. The company released a statement claiming that the policy change does not permit users to advocate for violence against Russian civilians, unless it's related to the Ukraine invasion. After some internal emails were obtained by Reuters, Meta clarified that the policy change only applies to Facebook users in Ukraine. In a statement to CNN, the company further elaborated by saying that they directed the loosened rule toward people who warfare directly affects, and that they only allow violent statements against the invading Russian military. For example, it's permissible for a Facebook user in Ukraine to write "Death to the Russian invaders." But Russian officials were unsatisfied with this explanation. The government is restricting its civilians' access to Meta's social media platforms. They've also restricted access to Twitter in the country. Meta continues to assert that it does not believe in violence against Russians who are not in the military. Describing the newly imposed social media limitations as terrifying, the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, said that around 80 million people would lose access to the social media network. He also said that the company is doing everything it can to keep people safe. 8. Smiley Martin. A recent tragic mass shooting in downtown Sacramento rocked the city and saw 6 people dead and 12 wounded. Hours before the horrifying crime occurred, people saw one suspect, 27-year-old Smiley Martin, on Facebook, waving around a gun and talking about going to a nightclub. Martin was among the 12 wounded in the shooting, but they later arrested him on suspicion of being involved. So it doesn't exactly look like he'll be going home to recuperate after receiving treatment for his wounds. Police and the Sacramento Bee got the 15-minute clip before someone removed it from social media. It appears they filmed it outside a pair of apartment complexes, but the exact location is unknown. In the video, we can hear Smiley talking to a group of people about going to a club, but then mentioning that he didn't plan to go because he didn't have his ID. He then pointed a handgun, which investigators believe he'd stolen and modified, straight toward the camera. The footage also featured one victim, 32-year-old Joshua Hoy Lucchesi, who died in the shooting. During the video, a patrol car passes by the group and asks the men if they've seen a missing child. They say no, and the officers drive away. The Sacramento police are still sorting out the details of what happened. For now, they seem hesitant to discuss the particulars. Evidence suggests that the violence was gang-related, that there were at least 5 shooters, and that 2 or more of the people who died were gang members. Based on records, it seems like the shootout may have stemmed from the long-running rivalry between Crips and Bloods. Just a year before the shooting, District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert had vocally opposed Martin's early release from prison on assault and deadly weapons charges. She described the man as a career criminal and a threat to society. And, in hindsight, it seems like she was right, but he was released. Now that he's accused of yet another serious crime, he may not get off the hook so easily. 7. Chloe Jones. A 23-year-old Pennsylvania woman named Chloe Jones seemed more amused than scared when she saw herself listed as a wanted person on the Greene County Sheriff's Office's Facebook page in 2019. She responded to the post with snarky comments, including one remark in which she asked the agency if they do pickup or delivery. Police wanted Jones for allegedly failing to appear in court on a misdemeanor assault case. But it was most likely her behavior on Facebook, rather than the crime they accused her of, that prompted other social media users to encourage her to turn herself in. People seemed rather put off by her attitude, which they described using words like immature, embarrassing, and trashy. The backsassing young fugitive revealed in the heated back and forth that her original charge stemmed from a fight she got into during a previous jail stint. She claimed she hadn't shown up for court because her boyfriend was in the hospital. In her defense, she rightfully pointed out that none of the people bashing her had ever met her personally and didn't know her. The war of words backfired on Jones when tips came pouring into law enforcement. Police tracked her down in neighboring West Virginia and had her extradited to Pennsylvania. Since then, it appears as though she's sorted out her legal issues and moved on with her life. 6. Amy Sharp. In an entertaining display of the teenage tendency to have wayward priorities, a young Australian lady named Amy Sharp seemed less concerned that police wanted her for a crime than she was about the unflattering mugshot that 7 News Sydney used in a social media post about her in 2016. The news outlet uploaded 2 photos of the 18-year-old, along with a police statement about how they wanted her because she'd escaped from jail. Instead of facing her mounting legal issues head-on, Sharp contacted 7 News and asked if they would use a more flattering picture. She even shared some hand-picked photos of herself that she wanted the mugshots replaced with. Although she was on the run, they considered Amy a low-risk offender, so the good news was that the police didn't think she was dangerous. They captured her near the complex she escaped from shortly after they issued the wanted alert. Fleeing turned out to be a terrible decision for Miss Sharp, who faced an additional charge of escaping lawful custody. New South Wales police declined to comment on whether Amy's comment helped them track her down. 5. Naria James. In early 2016, a young man named Dorian Powell turned up dead in San Bernardino County, California. Someone had stabbed him in the chest with a kitchen knife. It wasn't long before police turned their attention towards the 21-year-old's girlfriend, 18-year-old Naria James, who allegedly took credit for the brutal crime in a social media post. Naria reportedly wrote that a fight erupted between the couple when Dorian was drunk, and he struck her in the face. Naria said that she reacted by grabbing a knife and stabbing him. She said that she didn't intend to hurt him, suggesting that perhaps she was defending herself. The young woman finished the post with an apology to Dorian, along with RIP. The post fell in line with what Nakazi's brother and his girlfriend, who she left behind at the apartment when she fled the scene, told the police. Investigators soon tracked her down and charged her with murder. She pleaded not guilty, and it's unclear how the case panned out. By the time the matter went to court, Nakazi had deleted her social media confession, and the police declined to comment on the matter. 4. Marketplace carjackings. The US Department of Justice just announced the arrest of 8 suspects who were allegedly involved in a federal carjacking scheme and other violent crimes in Philadelphia and the surrounding area. In some incidents, criminals surprise victims while filling their gas tanks or talking on their phones inside their parked vehicles. Another carjacking involved a custom-made ghost gun, which refers to a firearm that's assembled at home and is therefore untraceable. In this incident, 2 perpetrators held up a motorist, then got into a high-speed chase with police. They crashed the stolen vehicle into another car, causing life-threatening injuries to the other driver. Police accused one suspect, 23-year-old Camden, New Jersey resident Sean Allen, of finding his victims on Facebook Marketplace, where they advertised their used cars for sale. Allen allegedly contacted the individuals, pretending to be someone interested in buying their vehicle. Then he reportedly met up with them, threatened them with a gun, and stole their car. The carjackers certainly got creative. Besides targeting people who were sitting in their cars, distracted, and victims they found on social media, they held up rideshare drivers, as well as one person who was waiting for a train with their car parked at the station, and another who was in their vehicle waiting for a parking space to become available. 3. Heard it through the grapevine. A mom from Detroit named Talisha Oldham was shocked to find out through social media that they allegedly attacked her son Adriel on the school bus. A disturbing video that was captured by a fellow student and made its way to Facebook appears to show the 6-year-old being punched, thrown, and sat on. And it wasn't one of the boy's classmates who hurt him, according to a lawsuit recently filed by Oldham, which accuses the bus driver and another employee of committing the horrifying act. In hindsight, Talisha remembered Adriel wasn't acting like himself when he arrived home from school that day. She told Click on Detroit that her son was lethargic, didn't want his afternoon snack, and slept for hours. It outraged Oldham when the video surfaced, especially since nobody from the Detroit public school system had notified her of the incident. It's even more troubling that Adriel is autistic and struggles to communicate, making him especially vulnerable to abuse. Talisha's attorney, Arnold Reed, said that every single mechanism designed to protect this child failed, and that those mechanisms are still failing. Neither he nor Talisha knows what led up to the heartbreaking and infuriating actions against little Adriel. The school district claimed it sent an automated call to parents after learning of the incident, but the lawsuit accuses the district of lacking in its response to what happened. They fired the bus driver after the allegations came to light, and they cleared another staff member of any wrongdoing. Adriel is now being homeschooled so that his mother can ensure his safety and well-being at all times. 2. Jonathan Robinson. A 28-year-old resident of Dale, South Carolina, named Jonathan Robinson recently found himself on the wrong side of the law after he allegedly robbed a Facebook seller at gunpoint. According to police, he responded to an advertisement for a used video game console and made plans to meet up with the seller at a restaurant. Robinson then reportedly changed the meeting location to a local community center, where he pulled a gun on the unsuspecting seller and demanded the man's wallet, watch, cell phone, and the gaming system. Robinson fired no shots, and they reported no injuries, but he's still facing some serious consequences for his alarming behavior. Not long after the robbery, police pulled him over and took him into custody on warrants related to the allegations against him. Police charged the suspect with armed robbery and possession of a weapon in the commission of a violent crime. He's currently in custody as he awaits the next step to sorting things out with the justice system. The incident reflects a bigger problem in the area, according to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, which noted that this was at least the 4th armed robbery in recent months where they victimized someone via Facebook Marketplace and other selling platforms. This may create a new saying, seller beware, rather than the old one, buyer beware. 1. Daniel Clark. In one of the most bizarre internet stalking cases to make headlines recently, they accused a British man named Daniel Clark of carrying out a vile campaign harassment against a 20-year-old woman, her boyfriend, and her parents between late 2020 and early 2021. The victim didn't know Clark when he messaged her and told her to stop following him on her yellow moped. She doesn't own a yellow moped, so she thought nothing of the message and ignored it. Things escalated quickly. 30-year-old Clark soon began publicly accusing the woman's parents of being pedophiles. He also sent her sickening messages and photos, including at least one image of male private parts. The deranged stalker eventually began making terrifying threats against his victims, saying that he was going to kill the woman's parents and stating his plans to murder her as well. He made other cryptic but worrisome promises, including, in his words, "You're going to pay big time for what your family has done to me." Clark also sent the woman a photo of a knife sitting on his leg and ultimately showed up at her house with a metal bar in his hand. She went to the police, and when they tracked him down, they found the knife in his possession. Finally, they arrested Clark. He reportedly admitted to stalking the woman and sending malicious messages to her and her family. A judge ordered him to go to rehab, wear a tracking device, and undergo 2 years of supervision. They issued the victim an indefinite restraining order, but the stalking traumatizes her. She said in court that she feels unsafe and is afraid to go outside, especially at night. Thanks for watching! What do you think is worse, getting robbed at gunpoint or having someone you know steal something precious to you? Let us know in the comments below and remember to subscribe. See you next time, bye!